Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Nice to see you all here. Some old faces, some new faces. I'm Jeff Dukoski-Feldman, professor in the math department here, and I've been directing this program in memory of some professors here who started the program about 30 years ago, Mel Santer, Dan Gillis, Seth Brody, and Sid Perlow. They started the program to celebrate Yiddish and Eastern European culture, and we're doing that in a big way today. This is our last program of the spring semester. We'll start up again in September with roughly one event per month. Please be sure to sign up on our email list on our website so you get timely reminders. The Yiddish Culture Festival receives no direct funding from Haverford, so we rely on your donations and contributions to keep us going. You can contribute by credit card on our website or by check or cash in this little box, and somebody's already started it. So I'll be carrying this around with me after the program if you want to make a donation. Thank you. Not being a Yiddish speaker myself, I couldn't run this program on my own, and I want to thank the many folks who've helped with advice and ideas along the way. Paulette Jelinek, Rachmil Peltz, Eugene Orenstein, Mindy Spiegel, Margaret Strayer, and Ariana Huberman, among many others over the years. And in particular, I want to recognize Andy Cassell, who has been co-directing these programs with me over the last several years. Andy organized amazing Sholem Aleichem celebrations at Haverford 10 and 20 years ago, and you can find those on YouTube. They're very interesting. He's also put together another wonderful program for you today. So thanks, Andy, and come on up.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. And welcome to everyone. Sholem Aleichem and Baruch habo. As Jeff mentioned, this is the third time we've held a commemoration or celebration of the writer Sholem Aleichem here at Haverford. We did the first one 20 years ago, and the second one 10 years ago. I don't know whether there'll be a fourth one in another 10 years, but stick around, I'll let you know. And if you're nostalgic, as he said, you can go on YouTube and see the tapes of the earlier one. This, as you know, this is a tradition that began after Sholem Aleichem's death in 1916. It's based on the request he made in his will that on each anniversary of his death, each yortzayt, his family and friends should gather to read that will and some of his stories, particularly the humorous ones, to remember him with warmth and love. The tradition continued for many decades. In the early 2000s, when I was studying Yiddish and part of a Yiddish reading circle that was active near here, some of us attended one of the family yortzayts in New York, and we found it enjoyable, fascinating, wonderful experience, featuring famous actors and some of his family members, including Belle Kaufman, who was still alive at that time. And that led us in 2006 to organize the first yortzayt reading here. And while preparing it, I discovered that Philadelphia had the distinction of having been the place he gave his last made his last public appearance. Just a few weeks before he died in 1916. I'll tell you a little more about that later after our readers. But first, because of a scheduling coincidence, we're also meeting here on another important anniversary, and I'm going to ask Mindy Spiegel to explain that. For those who don't know her, Mindy is a retired school teacher who moved here from Montreal 5 years ago, and she'll be followed by our musical guest, Phyllis Chappell, who I'll also introduce a little more fully later in the program. So Mindy, Phyllis.
As you heard, my name is Mindy Spiegel. I am the daughter of Chaike Bel-Chatowska and Baruch Spiegel, two fighters in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. Today, as you heard, marks the 83rd anniversary of the uprising. When I noticed the date of this program, I thought, How can we have such a joyous program on this date? It felt so incongruous to me. As a child, growing up in my particular family, April 19th was a day of mourning. We didn't turn on the TV or the radio. We lit 6 memorial candles to remember the 6 million Jews who perished, but also for my grandparents, aunts and uncle, and extended family for whom there is no gravestone and no dates to commemorate their deaths. How can I reconcile my presence here? Well, I had listened to my parents talk about life in the ghetto. There were underground schools organized by different organizations. There were soup kitchens, and there were artistic programs. Sholem Aleichem was revered in the ghetto by young and old alike. So, in honor of the fighters of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, we dedicate today's program to them. It is traditional to stand for the singing of the Partisans' hymn. Please rise if you are able to do so.
You going to sing along with me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Sag mir keinmal, als du gehst im letzten Weg, hast du im Kleinen verstellt im blauen Tee. Komm im Bett noch unser ausgebänkte Show, ist der Wetter heute unser Trott bis seinen da. Repeat that. Komm im Bett noch unser ausgebänkte Show, ist der Wetter heute unser Trott bis seinen da. Vom grünen Palmenland bis weißen Land und Schnee, wir kommen an mit unseren Beinen unterwegs. Und wo gefallen sie verspritzen unser Blut, sprotzen der Tod unser Tore, unser Mund. Und wo gefallen sie verspritzen unser Blut, sprotzen der Tod unser Tore, unser Mund. Das Lied geschrieben ist mit Blut und mit dem Blut. That's the third verse, I'm sorry. Or the fourth verse. Sie ist nicht keine von einer beugelhafte Frei. Das hat der Volk so wie schon fertig gewähnt. Das Lied gesungen mit nicht gar nichts in der Hand. Das hat der Volk so wie schon fertig gewähnt. Das Lied gesungen mit nicht gar nichts in der Hand. Last verse, same as the first. So, ich käme mal an, du gehst im letzten Weg. Hast in dem Bleien, ich verstehe den blauen Tee. Komm im Bett noch unser ausgebänkte Show. Sie wird ab heute noch unser Trocknis sein da. Komm im Bett noch unser ausgebänkte Show. Sie wird ab heute noch unser Trocknis sein da.
Thank you, Phyllis. Thank you. So now we move to the traditional reading of Sholem Aleichem's will, which became one of the best known and most reprinted such documents anywhere, cited by members of the U.S. Congress and printed in translation by the New York Times the day after his death. Today we'll hear it read in Yiddish and English by David Brown, who has come down to us from New York and is very glad to be here back in Philadelphia as a former student at the University of Pennsylvania and a teacher of Yiddish there as well. This is also, he tells me, where the American side of his family first settled in the 1920s after emigrating from a shtetl in northeastern Poland called Sochowolia. Did I get that right? Sochowolia? Okay.
Where Jeff's family happens
And
to be from.
well,
as
there you go. Homecoming once again. So Doug, come on.
Okay. Excellent. Okay. But you will. Yeah, I will forward it. All right. Let me just get my water. So Andy, I'm going to do the epitaph last.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay.
So we'll just go to Savoy.
Explain where this came from.
Yes, exactly. This, Andy informed me, I didn't know about this, that my alma mater, University of Pennsylvania, acquired the original of the Savoy, of the Last Will and Testament. So this is the Last Will and Testament of Sholem Aleichem. What we see here is a rare sighting of Sholem Aleichem's real signature, in addition to the not so rare sighting of his pseudonymous signature. So Sholem Aleichem is on everything he wrote once he was a famous individual, but right on top of that, since this is a legal or quasi-legal document, is his actual civilian signature, which I had never seen before, actually. And this is quintessential him, his spelling, his handwriting, it all jibes with the very much that we know of Sholem Aleichem, who in his lifetime was quite a public figure, but after his life was even more so. And as Andy just said, this Last Will and Testament was published the day after his death in the New York Times in full. All 10 clauses of this Last Will and Testament were published in full in the New York Times. And we'll get to them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read the original Yiddish clause by clause and then intersperse the English translation and discuss that a little bit. The English translation was done apparently by Judah Magnus, Judah Leon Magnus. At the time, he was in America, a major reform rabbi in the United States, who went on to become chancellor, then president of Hebrew University in Mandate, Palestine at the time. And after him is named Magnus Publishing, the university press of Hebrew University. So Magnus, Magnes. You may have books from that publisher. This is the guy, he translated it. And I'll have some notes also about his translation when we go through it. So, and let me just say, I am the co-president of an institute in the Bronx, this is in my volunteer life, which is called the Sholem Aleichem Cultural Center, Sholem Aleichem Kulturzentrum, formerly Sholem Aleichem Schul 21, School number 21. Within a decade of Sholem Aleichem's death, the Sholem Aleichem Volksinstitut, this was a nationwide movement. In English, the Sholem Aleichem, there are two different versions on the paperwork. Sometimes it's called Sholem Aleichem People's Institute, that's what they mean, or it's Sholem Aleichem Folk Institute, just copying the Yiddish word folk, Volksinstitut. It became a nationwide network of after-school or extracurricular Yiddish culture schools throughout the whole country, throughout, I was about to say this continent, no, not Canada. This is where American Jewish and Canadian Jewish education are very different. So American Jewish Yiddishist education is oriented to after-school and Sunday school education. And the famous four movements in this country are the Sholem Aleichem, the Arbeitering Worker Circle, the Ordenschulen, the IWO, International Workers Order, and the Verband, the Zionistischer Arbeiterverband. Those are the four movements. Within 10-ish years of Sholem Aleicham's death, Yiddish civilization, Yiddish literature is so commonplace, both in the old country and in the new, that an organization is created and named after this, our Sholem Aleichem, and this becomes one of the major educating forces in Yiddish culture for kids who are immigrants themselves, and largely kids who are the children of immigrants. And so my little Sholem Aleichem 21 in the Bronx is the last holdout of that organization. We lost our umbrella organization many decades ago, but this was once a school and then became a cultural center.
I'm sorry, could you tell me where in the Bronx it is?
Near Montefiore Hospital, Bainbridge Avenue. Okay. So, die Zavoe von Sholem Aleichem. Ich bet öffnen und veröffentlichen in einem Tag von mein Teut. Sholem Aleichem. I don't think we have that in the translation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Second paragraph.
Oh, thank you. Right. Heintigen Tag, Mochras Yom HaKippurim, es hat sich nur was angehäuben ein neues Jahr. Und ein großes Unglück hat getroffen meine Familie. Gestorben mein älterer Sohn Michael Rabinowitsch. Und weggetragen mit sich in Kever ein Stück von meinem Leben. Ist geblieben bei mir, ich soll überschreiben auf das Nei, mein Zavoe, welche ich hab gehabt geschrieben in dem Jahr 1908 bei mein Kranksein in Nervi, Italien. Seien die gesund und in vollem Verstand, schreibe ich mein Zavoe, was besteht in 10 Punkten. Aleph. Wo ich soll nicht sterben, soll man mich behalten, nicht zwischen Aristokraten, Mejuchosim oder Gewirim, nur grad zwischen Proste Jiden, Arbeiter, mit dem ämmesten Volk, also als die Matzeve, was mir wird der noch wegstellen auf mein Kever, soll bescheinen die einfache Quorim herum mir, und die einfache Quorim sollen beputzen mein Matzeve, also wie das proste, ehrliche Volk hat für mein Leben bescheint sehr Volksschreiber. Just a note about that for a second. Notice the translation, or not lack of translation, of the last word, Volksschreiber. We can take Volksschreiber to mean a couple of things, and I don't know what the typical New York Times reader of the time thought that meant. But Volksschreiber could be national writer. Volksschreiber could be writer for the people, for the simple people. Volksschreiber could be Schreiber von dem Volk, a writer who comes out of the people himself, and clearly Sholem Aleichem found himself to be all of those. Paragraph 2, base. Kein Schum Titlen mit Leubenischen, mit Morenus soll auf mein Matzeve nicht sein. Äußer der Nomen Sholem Aleichem von ein Seit und äußer dem jiddischen Aufschrift, was beigelegt von der anderen Seite. This in particular, no titles please, including the typical traditional titles on the tombstones of great learned individuals in Jewish communities. He's asking, don't put down our master, our leader, our scholar, our great man. Please stay away from that type of language. And he just wants Sholem Aleichem, his pseudonym, which of course also means hello, nice to see you. Somebody once translated his name into English as Mr. How do you do? And then he wrote his own epitaph, which I'm going to read at the end. Gimel, third clause. Kein Schum Debatten und Diskussionen von meine Kollegen wegen verewigen mein Nomen, wegen Aufstellen mir ein Monument in New York und desgleichen, soll nicht sein. Of course, I paused there for a moment, I got confused. His tombstone, his grave, is in New York after all. So this was not, for historical reasons, this was not, he died in New York, he was buried in New York, and he was not buried among the simple people after all. He was buried in a workers' circle area of the Mount Carmel Cemetery in Queens, among the who's who of the Yiddish literati and social activists of the time. But it still is the case that this, I would say, is the gravestone that does outshine all the others and give a certain air to everybody else there and reminds you just what presence you're in. But no simple people right in that area. Ich will nicht können einliegen ruhig in Kever, als meine Chaverim wollen sich narrisch machen. Der beste Monument wird sein für mir, als mir wird lehnen meine Werk. Und als es wollen sich gefinnen in die vermögliche Klassen von unser Volk, Mäzenaten. Mäzenaten, Yiddish for benefactors. You have this Baroque word, I don't even know it in Latin, but in English, it's used in Yiddish, in everyday Yiddish, to mean benefactors. It's the Greek, it is the Greek individual who is associated with giving. Maecenas, yeah. Was wollen sich nehmen, herausgeben und verspreiten meine Werk. Hen in Yiddish, hen in andere Sprachen, und damit geben dem Volk die Möglichkeit zu lesen und meine Familie a bekovede Existenz. Ob ich hab nicht solche gewähnt oder nicht verdient kein Mäzenaten bei meinem Leben, welch sei öfter solche sein noch ein Teut. Ich gehe weg von der Welt mit dem vollen Glauben, als das Volk wird nicht verlosen meine Jesäume. Clause 4. Auf mein Kever und danach das ganze Jahr und später allemal zum Yortzayt soll mein übergebliebener einziger Sohn, wie euch meine Edems, ob sie wollen, sagen noch mir Kaddisch. Und ob sie wollen kein Cheshik nicht haben, oder die Zeit wird sie nicht erlauben, oder es wird sein gegen ihre religiöse Überzeugungen, können sie heute sein nur damit, wo sie wollen sich zu neu bleiben, alle mit die Töchter meine und mit die Einiglach und mit glatt guter Freund und vorlehnen die dosike Zavoe meine. Und euch auskleiben am Meise von meine Meiselach, von die samme Freilache und vorlehnen es in wasserer Sprach wird für sie sein mehr verständlich. Und los mein Nomen der Mann werden von sie besser mit der Gelächter, eider gar nicht der Mann werden. Fifth clause. Hey. Religiöse Überzeugungen können meine Kinder und Kindskinder haben, was sie will. Nur seine jiddische Abstammung, bet ich, sie sollen hitten. There's use in this translation of the word race. Sholem Aleichem's language is Stamm and Abstammung, my stem, my descendancy, my cultural or ethnic heritage. Diejenige von meinen Kindern, was wollen sich abwerfen von seiner Stamm und wollen arriber ineinander glauben, haben sich schon damit allein abgeworfen von seiner Stamm und von seiner Familie und allein ausgemerkt sich von mein Zavoe. Ve'ein lohem chelik ve'nachalo besoich achayim. That's a biblical Hebrew quote. Vov. Als was ich vermog, sei in Mesummen, ob das min wird sich gewinnen in mein Besitz, sei in Bücher, gedruckte und in Manuskript, sei in Jiddisch, sei in andere Sprachen, äußer die, wo seinen übersetzt in Hebräisch, gehört zu mein Freu Hodl Bas El Melech oder Olga Rabinovich. Und noch ihr Teut geht es herüber zu meinen Kindern gleich auf gleich. Zu meiner Tochter Chai Esther, Ernestina Berkowitsch, zu meiner Tochter Sora, Lala Kaufmann, zu meiner Tochter Noemi, Emma Rabinovich, zu meiner Tochter Miriam, Marussia Rabinovich und zu meinem Sohn Nochem, Numa Rabinovich. I think the English had a typo there. It's Nahum, Nahunam. Und was anbelangt zu meinem Werk in Hebräisch, gehören sie zum meisterhaften Übersetzer, mein Schwiegersohn Judalet Berkowitsch, und zu seiner Tochter, mein Enkel Tamara Berkowitsch. Das soll sein ihr Namen. Die Tantiemen, was wollen hereinfallen für meine Pjesen, hen in Russland, hen in Amerika, soll halb gehen zu meine Yorshim und halb soll abgelegt werden auf Namen von mein Enkel Bella, die Tochter von Michael und Sore Kaufmann. Das soll sein ihr Namen. That, of course, is Belle Kaufman. And I attended, I believe, the last public appearance of Belle Kaufman at the Sholem Aleichem yortzayt in 2014-ish, something like that. 14. Died in 14. So I was there, and somebody knew that I was out of the house and burglarized me that day. So that's a day for me, a day to live in in infamy in my life. But I have to say, that was traumatic, but it was worth it to be at this reading with Belle Kaufman.
She was 103 years old.
She was 103, fully with it, and just amazing. And, you know, the last person to have known Sholem Aleichem, the last person to have sat on Sholem Aleichem's lap, and I was in her presence. It was quite remarkable. That balanced things out for me.
Yeah.
Clause 7, paragraph Zayin. Von alle Hachnoses. Oh, and of course, she's the author of the bestseller Up the Down Staircase. Von alle Hachnoses, wo seinen ausgerechnet in früheren Paragraph, soll heruntergenommen werden von Fond für jiddische Schreibers in Jiddisch und in Hebräisch bis 5.000 Rubel a Jahr. Let me just make a note about the English translation if you're following it. There is a little bit of confusion in it between Jewish and Yiddish. And in 1916, certainly, the two words were largely interchangeable. So the Harkavi Yiddish Dictionary, English Yiddish Dictionary, is in 1905-ish and 1890, whatever, called English Jewish Dictionary on its spine. Later, the 1928 version is the Yiddish English Dictionary. So in between that period, between the first and the second of Harkavi's great dictionaries, the terminology changes. Yiddish, of course, means Jewish, and that's why you hear people saying every once in a while in their English that what the family spoke was Jewish. We spoke Jewish. And that, of course, means Yiddish and nothing other than Yiddish specifically. And so in this document as well, at one point, Magnus uses the term Jewish, meaning Yiddish. And here he's talking, though, about Jewish writers who are writing in Yiddish and Hebrew. He makes a point of that. And of course, his son-in-law, Yudalit Berkowitsch, any Berkowitsch street in Israel is named after this Yudalit Berkowitsch. And any Sholem Aleichem street in Israel is named after the Sholem Aleichem, of course. And this is his son-in-law who translated Sholem Aleichem's works into pre-modern modern Hebrew. Now we would call it modern Hebrew, but this was a pre-modern version of modern Hebrew. What is he willing this fund, which to my understanding never got off the ground, is another unfulfilled clause. Bis 5.000 Rubel a Jahr. 5%, und ob die Hachnosse wird sein mehr wie 5.000 Rubel a Jahr, ist 10%, zum Beispiel von 6.000 Rubel 600, von 7.700, von 8.000 Rubel, 800 Rubel und so weiter. Ob in jener Zeit wird sein als ein Fond, da in Amerika oder dort in Europe, sollen die Prozenten alle Jahr eingezahlt werden in Fond rein und der Fond wird tun laut seine Statuten. Bei ihm aber, es wird bis dann kein offizieller Fond nicht sein, oder es wird sein als ein Fond, was entspricht nicht mein Willen, was ist ausgerät in Anheb von dem dosigen Paragraph, sollen die Prozenten zerteilt werden, neut bedürftigte Schriftsteller von meine Jorschim direkt, laut Vereinigung zwischen sie. Ches, Clause 8. Ob ich will nicht beweisen für mein Leben, alleine wegzustellen, am Matzeve auf den Käfer von meinem Norvos verstorbenen Sohn Mischa Rabinowitsch, in Kopenhagen, sollen das tun meine Jorschim Bejad Rachovo und in dem Tag von sein Yortzayt soll alle Jahr gesorgt werden Kaddisch und zerteilt werden Chai Kroin Tzdoke Leaniyim. Tess. Mein Wunsch ist, als meine Jorschim sollen sich einordnen also, als meine Werk und meine Pjesen sollen litzmitus nicht verkauft werden, nicht da in Amerika, nicht in Europa, nur sie sollen beweisen zu leben von seiner Einkunft alle Jahren, was es gehört zu sein, laut Gesetz von dem Land. Seiden es wird kommen als eine Zeit, oder es wird sich gefunden als eine Scheute, was wird abzahlen für ein Schuss, als eine Summe, welche soll kennen sein genug auf uns zu halten am Mischpoche. Dann sollen sich alle Jorschim zwischen sich verständigen. Und ob die Mehrheit wird zustimmen, soll man sich mit den Mesumonim zerteilen, heilig geheilig, laut Paragraph Wov und Koidem Kol, sollen die 10% abgenommen werden für den jiddischen Literaturfond laut Paragraph sein. Gut. Mein letzter Wunsch zu meinen Nachfolger und mein Bakosche zu meinen Kindern. Obhitten die Mame, beschänen ihr Eltern, versießen ihr bitter Leben, heilen ihr gebrochen Herz, noch mir nicht weinen, noch adrabe der Mannen mich mit Freud, und der Riker zwischen sich leben in Frieden, nicht trocken in Szene eins auf das andere, euch helfen sich einer dem Zweiten in a schlechter Zeit, der Mannen sich einmal in der Mischpoche, Rachmones haben glatt auf einen neuen Mann, und bei guten Umständen zollen meine Chäuves, ob solche wollen sein. Kinder, trogt mit Ehre mein verhorweten jüdischen Namen. Und der Gott, was im Himmel, soll euch sein zu Hilf. Amen. Sholem ben Menachem Nochem Rabinowitsch, Sholem Aleichem. Now to the epitaph, yeah. So this is the epitaph that is printed on his tombstone. Do liegt a Jid a Posheter, geschrieben Jiddisch-Deutsch, für Weiber, und für ein Prosten Volk hat gewinn a Humorist, a Schreiber. Das ganze Leben ausgelacht, geschlagen mit der Welt Kapores. Die ganze Welt hat gut gemacht, und oi wei, gewinn auf Zores. Und aufgedämmelt, wenn der Eulem hat gelacht, geklatscht und pflegt sich freien, hat gekränkt, das weiß nur Gott, besot, als keiner soll nicht sehen. Sholem Aleichem.
Thank you. I thought it was beautifully read, and that last paragraph always gets me. It's really quite emotional. So thank you, David. And now we're going to move on to our first of two stories by Sholem Aleichem. This one is going to be called "On Account of a Hat." It'll be read by Ezra Leibovitz and Ellen Dichter. Ezra is a Jersey boy, currently a doctoral student in comparative literature and literary theory at UPenn. And Ann Ellen, who also answers to Hannah Heike, is a mother, a published poet, a Jewish educator, a lover of Yiddish, and a veteran of these programs. She helped us read the Well 10 years ago, I think. And she also thinks everyone should visit the National Yiddish Book Center in Massachusetts and consider attending Yiddstock, the festival of new Yiddish music there. Guys? I'll tell you a little bit about the story. It was written in 1913, which was a time of resurgent Russian anti-Semitism on the eve of World War I. It was described in a Yiddish Book Center as a humorous yet devastating story about traveling by train. Let Ezra tell you more. You can sit there, or you can join on that one. Either one.
Yeah, so we can keep the manuscript in front of us.
Thank you. As Andy said, we'll be reading On Account of a Hat or Ibra Hitler. I'll offer the Yiddish, and Ellen will offer the English, which comes to us from a translation from Isaac Rosenfeld in 1953.
And this is the first time we've met in person. We met a lot over the phone. And we just discovered that Ezra's grandfather was one of my favorite professors in graduate school, teaching visual psychophysics of all. On Account of a Hat. Did I hear you say absent-minded now in our town, that is, in Kasrelevka? We've really got someone for you. Do you hear what I say? His name is Sholem Shachna, but we call him Sholem Shachna Rattlebrain. And is he absent-minded? Is this a distracted creature? The stories they tell about him, oy. Meanwhile, the time flew by, and before he knew it, it was almost Pesach. So Sholem Shachna, now listen to this, ran to the telegraph office and sent home a wire. Arriving home Passover without fail. You see how it is. Until Zlodievka, there isn't much you can do, so you just lean back and ride. But at Zlodievka, the fun begins, because that's where you have to change. To get onto the new train, which they did us such a favor by running out to Kasrelevka. And at what time of night may you look forward to this treat? The very middle, thank you. There's not one single place in the whole station where you can lay your head. When the wise men of Kasrelevka quote the passage from the holy book, Tov Shem Hashem and Tov, they know what they're doing. I'll translate it for you. We were better off without the train.
Ibra Hitler. Als is bij euch zertrogen? Als is bij ons in Kasrelevke, ein jeder zertrogener, Sholem Shachna heißt nur ruft men ihm Sholem Shachna 30. Tage über sein Zertrogenkeit. Ist das a zertrogene Brie? Wei, was mit der zählt sich on bei uns wegen dem Sholem Shachnen, meistens mit Anekdoten, Peck, ganze Peck. Derweil die Zeit steht nicht, a Tag und a Tag, und Pesach fliegt Sholem Shachna weg, auf dem Telegraph und klappt weg aheim a Depeche. Du bist permanent passt gut домой. Warum bis ihr kommt kein Zlodievke, Weist ihr noch, als ihr fort und als ihr kommt kein Lobjewke, hat ihr Peresadke. Das heißt, ihr darf sich übersetzen auf der Neuerbahn, was mir hat uns ein Teufel getan und zugeführt kein Kastrolewke. Und wenn darf ihr das tun? Akkurat noch halbe Nacht. Und es ist nicht da viele Wut im Kopf zuzusparen. Nicht sich sagen unsere Kastrolewker verkommen und verteidigen, Tov Shem Beshemen Tov. Der Pshat ist, als on der Bahn ist gewähnt eine Sache besser wie mit der Bahn.
To make a long story short, he still had to spend the whole night waiting in the station. What shall he do? Naturally, he looked around for a place to sit down. Nowhere, nothing, no place to sit. He finally discovered one miserable spot on a bench where he had just room enough to squeeze in, and no more than that because the bench was occupied by an official in a uniform full of buttons, who was lying there all stretched out and snoring away. Who this Buttons was, whether he was coming or going, he hadn't the vaguest idea. But he could tell that Buttons was no dime a dozen official. This was plain by his cap. A military cap with a red band and a visor. He could have been an officer or a police official. Who knows?
Bekitzer hat unser Sholem Schachner abwartende Nacht Instantia rein und genommen suchen ein Ort auf zuzusetzen sich. Wer? Was? Nicht da. Ein Stickelort hat kein gefunden, auf der Bank den Kopf anzusparen, aber dachte mehr nicht mit dem Kopf anzusparen, warum gemacht die ganze Bank hat vernommen, bis a Pritz a Knäppel, was hat sich zulegt ganz breitlich und oft. Wer das Knäppel ist, von wann und wohin erforscht, das weiß nicht. Nur, sehen seht als das bedarf sein a Grace Knäppel, aber gar a Grace Knäppel, noch ein Hittel hat herausgesehen. A woiner Hittel mit der rechten Okuloschock und mit der Kokarde. Efter ist das a woiner und efter a Polizeisker. Und wer kann es wissen?
It's not such a bad life to be a Gentile, and an official one at that with buttons, he thinks. And he sits down. Nowadays, you never can tell whom you're sitting next to. And supposing this is even Poroshkevich himself, the famous anti-Semite, may his name perish. Who was Buttons to me? Who was Poroshkevich to me? Oy. But all of a sudden he remembers. He's supposed to be home for Pesach, and tomorrow is Erev Pesach. What if, God forbid, he should fall asleep and miss his train? He goes looking for the porter, a certain Yeremai. He is already on his third sleepless night and is afraid, God forbid, that he may miss his train. Let Yeremai be sure to wake him up. Easter, he says to him in Russian, and lays a coin in Yeremai's mitt. Easter, Yeremai. Unser Easter, our Easter. Yeremai promises to wake him at the first sign of the train. So he sits down in his corner of the bench, gingerly, pressed up against the wall with his carpet bag curled around him, so that no one could steal it. Little by little, he sinks back, makes himself comfortable, and half shuts his eyes. No more than 40 winks, you know. But before long, he's got one foot propped up on the bench, and then the other he stretches out and drifts off to sleep. Sleep, I'll say, like God commanded us, with his head thrown back and his hat rolling away on the floor.
Zu sein der Goy und noch ein Knäppel dazu ist gefunden, Tage gar nicht schlecht. Also jetzt reicht sich Sholem Schachner und schlägt sich mit der Idee, sie soll sich setzen und da neben dosigen Knäppel Sie soll sich besser halten von der Weite. A kasha auf meise, heintige Zeiten, mir der was verkneppel, das ist. Efter ist doch gorporischke Witzi marschmal. Nur, zurück aber tut sich erklärt, wer mir kneppel, was mir porischkewitsch. Der Mond sich aber, als fort auf Pesach heim, und morgen ist schon Pesach, Tomer Chalila, der Tage anschlafen und verspätig in den Poest. Fällt auf ein Eize und sucht euch dem Storage von Stanzie, aber kann der Goy Jerme und macht ob mit ihm als ein Geschäft. Als hat Meure, soll Chalila vergas nicht verspätig in den Poest, alkein soll Jerme Sholem Aleichem wegwechen. Warum morgen after Nacht haben wir Jontef, Pesach. Pascha geht ihm zu verstehen auf Goyisch und ruckt ihm rein in Yad rein und sagt zu ihm noch einmal Pascha Jereme, Ziti Panimayesh, Nasche Pascha. Nimmt der Goy zu die Matbeja, legt rein in die Knie und sagt ihm zu, als mag sein ruhig, wie bald noch nur Svet sein die Powiestke auf den Poest, also weckt ihm auf. Schon Schaffner setzt sich zu und mustert sich ein. Was weiter als besser und Herr macht zu halb Oi mit der Idee, gewöhnlich soll noch haben und drehen, nicht mehr. Dennoch beugt unter ein Fuß noch ein Fuß und ist also Paulinke anschlafen geworden, aber wie soll meint anschlafen geworden? Real. Wie Gott hat geboten, den Kopf verworfen, das Hittel hat sich rotgerückt vom Kopf auf der Erde.
He had a very strange dream. And all of a sudden, get up, said the porter, time to get up.
Anschluft geworden, holen sich ihm am Modnerkaum, a ganz verplottenisch.
Time, what time? Sholem Aleichem is all confused. He wakes up and rubs his eyes. He realizes he has lost his hat. So he concludes that he is in the station of Zlodievka on his way home for Pesach, and that if he means to get there, he better run to the window for a ticket, but fast. Now what? No hat. Oy. The carpet bag is right where he left it, but his hat, he pokes around under the bench, reaching all over until he comes up with a hat. Not his own, to be sure, but the officials, with the red band and the visor. But Sholem Aleichem has no time for details, and he rushes off to buy a ticket. The ticket window is jammed. Sholem Aleichem thinks he won't get to the window in time, and he starts pushing forward. The people see the red band and the visor, and they make way for him. Where to, Your Excellency? Said the ticket agent. What's this excellency all of a sudden, wonders Sholem Aleichem? All the same, he says, Kasrelevka. Which class, Your Excellency? The ticket agent is looking straight at the red band and the visor. Sholem Aleichem is angrier than ever. Third, he says. All right, thinks the agent. Third is third.
Und plötzlich, steh auf, so zu ihm der Euro, steh auf, schon Zeit. Was Zeit? Wer Zeit? Versteht nicht Sholem Aleichem. Habt sich auf, reibt sich die Augen und will sich losen gehen, fühlt aber, als ist on a Hittel. Es hat aber lang nicht gedauert. Sholem Aleichem ist gekommen sich zu sich, der kennt der an dem Euro, es ist Jereme der Storage. Der Mond sich, als ist in Zlodievke auf der Station und als fort auf Pesach heim und als darf noch laufen zu der Kasse noch ein Billett. Nur was denn? Nicht da kein Hittel. Das Zerdondel ist da und das Hittel nicht. Wo kann sein das Hittel? Schaut herum sich mit die Hände, scharrt und tappt ohne Hittel, nicht sein Hittel. Wer? Was? das Oden bevochtigos Hittel mit den Reuten auf Koloschok und mit der Kokarde und Paschol gleich zu der Kasse noch ein Billett heißt es. Und bei der Kasse ist ein Engschaft, Kopf auf Kopf. Hat der Meure, Tomer Chalila, kauft man euch alle Billetten, stut sich zwischen Eulen. Der Sennereuten a Koloschok mit der Kokarde tritt man ihm auf dem Weg. Kuda вам, ваше благородие, fragt bei ihm der Kassier. Heute ist sich Sholem Schachna, was für Благородie mittendrin. Sagt man Sholem Schachna zum Kassier als kein Kasserlefke. Fragt ihm der Kassier noch einmal und guckt ihm gleich auf den Koloschok und auf der Kokarde. Was Klaas, wаше благородие? Wer schon mit Thomas Sholem Schachna recht im Kass und sagt ihm Berochel, Betag, Betcho, Haktono, Dritte. Is sich Meyashev, der Kassier, Dritte ist Dritte.
In short, Sholem Shachna buys his ticket, takes up his carpet bag, runs out onto the platform, plunges into the crowd of Jews and Gentiles, no comparison intended, and goes looking for the third-class carriage. Again, the red band and the visor works like a charm. Everyone makes way for the official. But he runs along the platform till he meets a conductor carrying a lantern. Is this third class? Asks Sholem Shachna. Yes, Your Excellency, says the conductor, but he holds him back. If you please, sir, it's packed full, as tight as your fist. You couldn't squeeze a needle into that crowd. And he takes Sholem Shachna's carpet bag and sings out, right this way, Your Excellency, I'll find you a seat. Your Excellency and Your Excellency, but he hasn't much time for the fine points. He's worried about his carpet bag. He's afraid, you see, that with all these excellencies, he'll be swindled out of his belongings. So he runs after the conductor with the lantern, who leads him into a second-class carriage. This way, please, Your Excellency. This way, please, Your Excellency. And again, the conductor grabs the bag and Sholem Shachna lights out after him. Where in blazes is he taking me? Sholem Shachna is racking his brains over this excellency business, but meanwhile he keeps his eye on the main thing, the carpet bag. They enter the first-class carriage. The conductor sets down the bag, salutes, and backs away, leaving Sholem Shachna, and who bows right back, and there he is, alone at last.
Hakitzer, bekommen den Billett, hat Sholem Shachna heißt es, dos Tremedondel, und lost sich Händusbandis in der Same Husche. Jeden Lahavdil Goim sucht den Waggon dritter Klasse. Der Eulen, der sehen in Akulaschok mit der Kokarde, zergeht sich mit Stomme mit der Heiratz, macht dem Oden weg. Sholem Shachna geht weiter und bei Gegend von Waggon Aris a Konduktor mit a Lantern. Dies dritte Klasse, fragt ihm Sholem Shachna. So dies, wasche Blahorodje, entfernt ihm der Konduktor und lässt ihm nicht gehen weiter. Sie ist ungepackt, sagt ihm, wasche Blahorodje, voll wie ein Eug, an Nodel nicht durchzuwerfen. Und nimmt weg bei Sholem Shachna das Chemadondel und sagt zu ihm, kommt mit mir, wasche Blahorodje, will ich euch geben ein Ort. Wasche Blahorodje und wasche Blahorodje tracht sich, und sein Kopf liegt ihm gar in Chemadondel. Hat mehr als von dem wasche Blahorodje soll derweil nicht bleiben ohne Chemadondel. Und läuft noch ein Konduktor mit den Lantern, und der Konduktor mit den Lantern führt ihm rein in Waggon zweite Klasse. Nur der Waggon zweite Klasse ist euch voll gepackt, Kopf auf Kopf. Gehen wir weiter, wasche Blahorodje. Macht zu ihm der Konduktor, hat dem Chemadondel wieder einmal und lässt sich gehen weiter und Sholem Shachna nach ihm. Wohin führt mich, tracht sich Sholem Schachna und brecht sich den Kopf auf ein Wasche Blarodie und lässt nicht kein Oig beis Meisa von einem Chemodandel. Das ist bei ihm Wilcher. Und ot seinen sie schon in Waggon erster Klasse. Da stellt weg der Konduktor des Chemodandel, nimmt sich Podgozorok, tut sich ein Neig zu Sholem Schachna zu ihm und Sholem Schachna bleibt allein.
Left alone in the carriage, Sholem Shachna looks around to get his bearings. He has no idea why all these honors have suddenly been heaped on him. First class, salutes, Your Excellency. Can it be on account of the real estate deal he just closed? That's it. But wait a minute. If his own people, Jews that is, honored him for this, it would be understandable. But Gentiles, the conductor, the ticket agent, what is it to them? Maybe he's dreaming. Sholem Shachna rubs his forehead and while passing down the corridor, glances into the mirror on the wall. It nearly knocks him over. He sees not himself, but the official with the red band. That's who it is. All my bad dreams on Yeremai's head and on his hands and feet that had 20 times I tell him to wake me, and I even give him a tip, and what does he does, that dumb ox? Cholera on his face, but wake the official instead. And me, he leaves asleep on the bench. Tough luck, Sholem Shachna, old boy. But this year, you'll spend Pesach in Zlodievka, not at home.
Geblieben einer allein über den ganzen Waggon, häupt an Sholem Schachna zu gucken sich, wo ist in der Welt. Versteht nicht, für was etwas plötzlich als Covid. Waggon erster Klasse, Podgozorek, Wasche Blarodie, nicht schönje ist das davor, was hat durchgeschlagen als Geschäft gemacht in Armenien. Wollt dem Covid gehabt von jedem, wollt noch gewähnt zu verstehen. Aber Goim, der Kassier, der Konduktor, sie ist das nicht im Ganzen nach Heulen? Und Sholem Shachna tut sich erregt dem Stern, hat der Kuck verwegendig auf sich den Spiegel. Es ist ihm porche nicht mehr so geworden. Hat der Sinn dem Oden bevochtet. Hat ihm erkennt. Was hat sich mir geholmt die Nacht und jene Nacht und ein ganz Jahr soll ausgehen zu Jermes Kopf und zu seiner Hand und Fies. €1 kann, me sagt ihm 20 Mal und me bezahlt ihm, soll euch wecken zum Poest mich, Sholem Schachnen, geht a Cholera ihm in Ponem und weckt auf dem Oden bevochtet und Sholem Schachnen lässt liegen auf der Bank. A Klog ist zu dein Kopf, Sholem Schachna, wirst schon, dacht sich, Pesach halten in Zlodievke heintigen Jahr, nicht in der Heim.
Now, get a load of this. Sholem Shachna scoops up his carpet bag and rushes off once more, right back to the station where he is sleeping on the bench. He's going to wake himself up before the locomotive, God forbid, lets out a blast and blasts his Passover to pieces. And so it was. No sooner had Sholem Shachna leapt out of the carriage with his carpet bag than the locomotive did let go with a blast. Do you hear me? One followed by another, and then good night.
Und nicht lang getracht hat Sholem Schachna das Chemodandel und putzt vom Waggon raus zurück auf den Vauxhall, gleich zu der Bank, wo Sholem Schachna liegt, aufwecken Sholem Schachna, warum kostet, wo Sholem Schachna liegt, aufwecken Sholem Schachna, wo ihm kostet, wie man sieht nicht, kann der Lokomotiv Chalila geben wir Pfeif und pfeifen Sholem Schachna in Pesach rein. Und Kochabe, wie nur Sholem Schachna ist rausgesprungen mit dem Chemodandel von Waggon raus, also hat sich gelost Herren, a Pfeif und noch a Pfeif. A guten Tag mit der Kapotte.
On account of being such a rattlebrain, Our dizzy Sholem Shachna had a miserable Pesach, spending both Seders among strangers in the house of a Jew in Slodievka. But this was nothing. Listen to what happened afterwards. First of all, he has a wife, Sholem Shachna, that is, and his wife. How shall I describe her to you? I have a wife, you have a wife, we all have wives. And we've had a taste of paradise. We know what it means to be married. All I can say about Sholem Shachna's wife is that she's number one. And did she give him a royal welcome? Did she lay into him? She said nothing about the red band and the visor. The only thing she complained about was the telegram. And not so much the telegram, you hear what I say, about the one short phrase, without fail. What possessed him to put that into the wire? Arriving home Pesach without fail. Was he trying to make the telegraph company rich? And besides, how dare a human being say without fail in the first place? It did him no good to answer and explain. She buried him. But this was nothing compared with what he caught from the town, Kasperlevka, that is. First, before he returned, the whole town, you hear what I say, knew all about Yeremai and the official and the red band and the visor and the conductors, Your Excellency, the whole show. He himself, Sholem Shachna, that is, denied everything and swore up and down that the Kasperlevka smart Alex had invented the entire story for lack of anything better to do. It was all very simple. The reason he came home late after the holidays was that he made a special trip to inspect a wooded estate. Woods, estate, not a chance. No one bought that. They pointed him out in the streets and held their sides laughing. And everyone asked him, how does it feel, Reb Sholem Shachna, to wear a cap with a red band and a visor? And tell us, said others, what's it like to travel first class? As for the children, this was made to order for them. You hear what I say? Wherever he went, they trooped after him, shouting, Your Excellency, Your Excellent Excellency, Your Most Excellent Excellency. You think it's easy to put clover on Kasperlevka?
Unser Sholem Shachna Dreiser hat über seine Zertrogenkeit gehabt a Wiesten Pesach. Ausgerissen geworden beide Sederim ergets bei a Jiden in Ktodievke. Nur der Pesach, wie der Pesach, der noch Pesach ist gewähnt a Sach Ärger. Steht, hat Sholem Shachna a Weib. Wie soll ich euch sie melden? Ihr hat a Weib, ich hab a Weib, wir alle haben Weiber und wissen dem Tam, was heißt a Weib. Ich kann euch nur sagen, a reale Jiden ist Sholem Shachnas Weib. Sie hat sich a Nehm gegeben zu ihm ganz real. Sie hat zu ihm nicht gehabt, kein teines nicht für ein Reutener Koloschok mit der Kokarde, nein. A teine zu ihm hat sie gehabt, nur für der Depeche. Und nicht so für der Depeche, wie für ein Wort des Primeno. Welche gute Jahr hat ihm getrogen, soll reich machen Kazna, des Primeno Jidu Pascu du Neu, und beklau wie kann ein lebendiger Mensch sagen des Primeno. Hat ihm nicht geholfen, kein Schum verentfern sich mit kein Schum geben zu verstehen. Sie ist aber als den Blotter gegen dem, was Sholem Shachna hat gehabt von der Stadt, von Kasperlevka heißt es, worum der Sholem Shachna ist noch gekommen dem zweiten Tag, Chol Hamayed aheim, hat schon die ganze Stadt, hat hinein gewusst von der Meise mit den Jarmein und mit den Oden befolgten und mit den Reuten Koloschok und mit der Kokarde und mit den Konduktors Wasche Blohorodje Als ding. God Erlein, Sholem Shachna heist das, hat gleichend Stein und Bein. Geteinet als das haben Leitzem ausgetracht. Kasserlefker Leitzem. Sie haben nicht was zu tun. Es geht sich ob kopfweitig abunnen. Verspätigt hat über dem, sagt was ist abgefahren in a Zeit, ob angucken eine Menge mit der Wald. Nur wer mir eine Menge, was mir Wald? Ein nächtiger Tag. Bei den Seiten hat man sich gehalten, mit der Finger hat man auf ihm geteilt. Andere haben ihm gefragt, wie hat sich gefühlt, Reb Sholem Schachnen in dem Hittel mit dem roten Koloschok und mit der Kokarde. Andere haben gewollt wissen, sie ist Tage so gut zu fahren, erster Klasse, wie die Welt sagt. Kinder Kutzim, die sind ihm noch gelaufen, a ganze Chalostre von hinten. Hat sie nehmen und geschrien, wasche Blochorodie, wasche wysokie Blochorodie, wasche wysokie Blochorodie. Spielt sich mit Kasserlewke? Vielen Dank.
It's interesting to try to do these things in two languages simultaneously. Next up, we have Seth Kulik. Seth is a researcher at the Linguistic Data Consortium at the University of Pennsylvania, working on various projects having to do with computers and language, including Yiddish, actually. One of these is with linguists in Great Britain to add syntactic information to Yiddish texts in order to study language change. Seth has been learning Yiddish for 4 years, both for fun and for that project. He likes to spend his spare time reading articles in 100-year-old Yiddish newspapers, one of which I saw the other day. I have to show you. It's when the Forwards decided to explain baseball in 1909. It's a terrific looking page. At any rate, this one, today he's going to read in English a Sholem Aleichem story titled "Otherwise There's Nothing New." It was written after the failed Russian Revolution in 1905, and it also followed Sholem Aleichem's first move to America, the aborted move to America in 1906, which in researching this, I discovered that that trip included some time in Philadelphia. So his arrive here the last year of his life was not his first trip to Philadelphia. He was here in 1906. I'll tell you more about that after Seth finishes.
Okay, so a letter, the whole full title, an exchange of letters between America and the old country. So in 2 parts. So a letter from America to the old country. To my dear friend Yisroelek, may you and your wife and children be inscribed for a year of health and happiness, and may God's blessings come upon all Israel. Amen. We've been worried stiff because you haven't written us any letters. We've been walking around in a blue funk ever since that period of revolution, Constitution, and pogroms began back home in the old country. We're literally eating our hearts out. If the papers here in America aren't bluffing, then those revolutionaries have probably made mincemeat of half the world already. Every day we get wind of another sensational event. Last night I read a cable that they strung up Mr. Khrushchev on, that damned anti-Semite and president of the Fourth Duma. Let me know if that isn't a lot of hot air. And write me about your business. Are you still working for someone, or are you on your own? And how's Connor Rickel? What's Herschel doing? And how is my cousin Lipa? And what about Yosel, Hennick's boy? And Bentzi and Rockel, Slaka, Matel, and the rest of the tailors? Are you thinking of coming to America? Fill me in on all the details in your next letter. Now for myself. Well, what can I say, pal? Everything's okay with me, the wife, and the kids. Thank God we're all making a living here. We work like horses, but at least we make ends meet. We're not salting away any money, but we've got 2 rooms and a kitchen. After work and come nighttime, we paint the town red. Sometimes we go to a socialist meeting, sometimes a Zionist meeting, and sometimes the Yiddish theater. We sweat and toil till we're blue in the face, but we're free. I can join any club I like, and if I feel like it, I can become a citizen and vote. The only thing we miss is home. We're homesick, something awful. My wife, Jenny, we don't call her Bluma anymore, doesn't leave me alone for a minute. She keeps nagging me to take a trip back to Russia and visit our beloved dear ones in the cemetery. You would never recognize Jenny. She's a regular lady, rigged out in hat, gloves, and all the trimmings. I'm enclosing a snapshot of her and the rest of the family. What do you say to my oldest boy? That's Model. Now he's called Mike. He's an all-rightnik. He works in a factory and earns $10, $12 a week. If only he wouldn't gamble, he would be a top-notch all-rightnik. My other boy, Jack, used to work in a factory too. He managed to pick up a bit of English and is now a bookkeeper in a barber shop. My third rascal, Benjamin, is a barroom waiter. He doesn't get wages, but he brings home between $6 and $8 a week in tips. My fourth boy, the one in the picture wearing a cap, is a loafer. He doesn't want to go to school, but hangs around outside on the street day and night playing ball. The girls are okay too. They work in shops and have some cash in the bank. The only trouble is that I see neither hide nor hair of them. They step out whenever they like, go wherever they like, and with whomever they like. America is a free country. You're perfectly free to keep your opinions to yourself. You can't even tell your own daughter what to do. Take my oldest girl, for example, formerly Chaya, but now known as Frances. What a job I had with her. Without telling me, she fell head over heels in love and said, I do, with a good-for-nothing bum, a member of the Brotherhood of Pickpockets. He was a runaway from the house of detention, but told her he was a famous clothing manufacturer and realtor. The upshot was that he was a bigamist. He had a sum total of only 3 wives, none of them divorced. The trouble I had till I got rid of him. Now Frances just married a pushcart peddler and is on Easy Street. My other girls are still single. When they get engaged, they won't ask my permission either. America's a free country. Everyone minds his own business as he sees fit, and that's that. Well, now that I've written you, pal, and told you what's doing with me, be sure to let me know right away what's with you, what's what with you, and what's going on back home. Best regards to one and all. And again, all the best for the new year. So long and lots of luck. Your pal, Jake, your best pal, Jacob, formerly Yankel. And then a letter from the old country to America. And my dear Yankel, I received your New Year's wishes right on the eve of Rosh Hashanah. Thank you very much for your kind letter. And I wish you all the best for the coming year. God willing, I hope that we will soon see each other in joy. Amen. Now I'm going to answer your letter. Listen, if you've already taken the trouble to send me New Year's greetings for the first time in 2 years, why don't you write Yiddish like a normal human being? How in heaven's name am I supposed to understand what you're saying with words like worried stiff, blue funk, hot air, salting away, bluff, hide nor hair, and other such phrases and expressions? I really want to find the original Yiddish for this because I do want to see what blue funk is and so on. You've asked me to spell out everything in detail. What can I say? There's really nothing new. Thank God all is well now. The rich men are doing nicely, as usual, and the poor people are dying of hunger, like all over. Working men like us are sitting around without a stitch of work, but at least we're all safe from a pogrom. We're not in the least afraid of a pogrom now. We've already had one. We've already had one, along with 2 encores, something that makes Kishinev unique. In fact, the pogrom reached us a bit late, but to make up for it, we had one with all the trimmings. In short, I don't want to write too much. I can't, for there's nothing new to write about. Dear Yankel, I can only report one thing. I'm still alive. I've looked the angel of death in the face 3 times. But never mind. How does Sketchy the dressmaker, remember him, put it? Who by earthquake and who by plague? In other words, if you're destined for lots of suffering, then at least God spares your life. My heart went out to my wife and children, so I sent them away. They hid in the attic of a kindly peasant and lay there in all their glory for 2 days and 2 nights without so much as a drop of water, a crumb of bread, or a wink of sleep. Things quieted down, thank God, only on the 3rd day, when there was no longer anything to rob or anyone to beat. Then everyone slowly crawled down from the attics, alive and well, praise the Lord. No one from our family was hurt, except Lippah, who was killed, along with his 2 sons, and Noah and Melech, 2 workers with golden hands, and poor Moshe Hirsch, who was dragged down from an attic, and Pearl Devorah, who was later found dead in a cellar, with a tiny infant Razelah at her breast. Including children, then the grand total of our family's losses was 7 dead. How does Getzi put it? This too was for the best. In other words, it could have been worse. As for the better, the sky's the limit. You asked about Herschela. Don't worry about him. For the past 6 months, he's been unemployed, sitting in solitary confinement in prison. Why is he serving time? I suppose a safe guess would be that he was in prison for the notorious crime of holding his prayer book upside down. Rumor has it that they have greater honors yet in store for him. He'll either be hanged or shot. It all depends on his luck. For as Getzi says, it's all a matter of matzel. For example, Yossel, Henek's son, dropped dead just before they were able to cart him off to jail. Otherwise, there's nothing new. Well, how come you didn't ask anything about Label, Nechemah's, the carpenter's son? Remember him? He was an absolute good-for-nothing, right? Label Stable, he was called. Today, he's living like a duke with lifetime tenure in the Petropavlovsk Penitentiary. But do you know who I feel sorry for? For Zlatka. They say she's gone mad for woes. No trifle, losing 2 children in 1 week. Avram, Moshe's son, is probably already in America. If you see him, give him my best regards and tell him that his father's quite a considerable chap. He dropped dead before they proclaimed the new constitution. And our motto simply disappeared. No one knows where. Lots like him have vanished. We don't even know what's become of them. Some ran away, some were killed, and some are resting up in prison or traipsing about in the Siberian snow, pushing wheelbarrows. But what do they care? Those stubborn characters were insistent. Either Constitution or die, they said. But we working men don't know any underhanded tricks. How does Getzi put it? Spare me your honey and spare me your sting. In other words, don't do me any favors. I'll tie my own shoelaces, thank you. A queer chap, that Getzi. One of his sons was killed in the war, the other one's in jail. Getzi himself has got plenty of troubles when it comes to quoting a Bible verse. Quoting a proverb or a verse from the Bible, he gets carried away. Otherwise, there's nothing new. Thank God all is well, and praise the good Lord. We're all in the best of health, except for Connor Rickle, who's been complaining about her heart, poor soul. No trifle, being in constant fear of expropriation. Of course, you probably don't know the first thing about expropriation, so I'll explain. They come into your house with a bomb, and if it isn't filled with matzah meal, and it isn't filled with matzah meal, but with powder and nails. Reach for the sky, they shout. Getzi calls this a biblical stick-up. Lift ye up your hands. They empty all your pockets and take away everything you own, and go try to stop them. Once 2 of these characters came into my place, pronounced a fine verse, and took my sewing machine. I also had a cow, but it died of its own accord. My girl Brocha is an even greater pauper than ever before, and Alter, too, is a far cry from being rich. Laser was deported for lack of a residence permit not too long ago. He certainly deserved it, huh? Who asked him to be a Hebrew teacher? Mendel also improved his position. He up and died. Some say of tuberculosis, others of hunger. I say he died of both. Binyamin's pride and joy is in the army and this constant talk of cholera. That's all we need. Otherwise, there's nothing new. And as for the request of your Bluma, or Jenny, as she's now called, to take a trip over here and see your dear ones in the cemetery, now is not the time, Yankel. Now is not the time. Put it off a year when, with God's help, things will quiet down a bit and everyone will stop killing everyone else. That's when you should come, and then, the good Lord willing, both of us will go to that holy field. God be praised. Many more of our friends are there now, not to mention casual acquaintances, and more are arriving daily. Otherwise, there's nothing new. Be well, and give our regards to each and every one. As for America, I'm not coming there. Your America doesn't even begin to attract me. A land where people get stiff when they worry, where you walk around in blue funks and hang around streets, where money is salted, where towns are painted red and faces blue, where bloom becomes Jenny, and men have 3 wives. No offense meant, but from such a land one ought to run away. After reading your letter, I've come to the conclusion that if we get the Constitution we expect, we won't need America, for we'll have a better America here than you have over there. But Yankel, don't you worry your head over it. We're going to get a good Constitution, like I'm going to wake up a millionaire tomorrow. Damn that anti-Semite Khrushchev with a pack of ulcers and plagues. I just pray that God inscribes us all, we here and you there, for a year of health and happiness. Your friend, Yisroel. Not the most remember the laughter and the laughter, but good one.
Relate to these days. Okay, so I got things out of line here. This was if you needed, I should have stuck on that. This was the funeral in New York, which drew out like to 150,000 people, the largest gathering in New York, Manhattan, and how it was reported. Okay, so next we have something that is really a Sholem Aleichem classic, one that, like his famous Tevye stories, grew and changed way beyond the original work. It was called Shlof Mein Kind. He composed it as a poem and published it in 1892. Within a decade, this had circulated so widely that it was generally assumed to be a Jewish folk song. And when the first collection of Jewish folk songs was published in St. Petersburg in 1901, this was included because it had been collected by several Zomlers, collectors that were all over the Russian Pale, one of whom was my grandfather. That's my grandfather sitting down on the next to his friend Aaron Pick. And more to the point, the text of the Sholem Aleichem song, which you can see here he corrected it in his copy of the book and signed the page. This is from a reprint of the original folk song book known as the Ginsburg Marek book that was issued in Israel in 1991. But now we have someone to sing it, Phyllis Chappell. Now, Phyllis has spent her life developing a universal musical style, a unique mix of jazz, originals, folk, pop, and international music, including songs in 13 languages, including Hebrew, Yiddish, and Ladino. Phyllis has performed across the country and abroad, has multiple CDs and videos, and was named as one of the top 500 jazz vocalists of all time by Downbeat. One of the anyway, and so here she is.
Thank you. I wish I looked like that. You do. I wish I looked like that. I wanted to share something with you. Haverford College is a Quaker institution, and I think they pride themselves on being, tolerant and accepting. And way back in the day, they did have quotas for the different ethnicities and different religions that they were allowing to enter into the college. And I think that they allowed 3 Jews a year to apply and enter Haverford College. And my uncle Harry, he was Dr. Harry Fields. He actually became a renowned obstetrician gynecologist in this region, and also the assistant to the president of University of Pennsylvania for athletics, and he was a professor there. And anyway, he graduated from Haverford College in 1931. So he was one of those 3 Jews that were allowed to enter Haverford. And so here we are with the Yiddish Culture Festival here at Haverford College. Of course, then you said that they didn't fund it, so I guess it's not that great, but I find it a little impressive and uplifting. So you can sing along if you want. Schlaf, mein Kind, mein Trist, mein Schöner, schlaf sehr gut, Schlaf, mein Leben, mein Kadeschöner, schlaf sehr sonnenjung. Bei dein Wiegel sitzt dein Mama, singt ein Lied und weint. Bist einmal verstehen, mich stoppen, was ich hat gemeint. Bist einmal verstehen, mich stoppen, was ich hat gemeint. In Amerika ist der Vater deines Hundenjung. Du bist noch ein Kinderlestatte, schlaf de Schlafljuju. Dus Amerika ist vergeben, sag mir nur Agli. Und Fariden Agan Eden, Episananti. Und Fariden Agan Eden, Episananti. Dort essen wir in der Woche alles Unterlug. Ja, ich will ich mir kochen, schlaf se Schlufljuju. Wird schicken $20, sein Portenter zu. Und wird nehmen Leben soll uns dahin so zu. Und wird nehmen Leben soll uns dahin so zu. Schlaf, mein Kind, mein Trist, mein Schöner, schlaf sehr gut, Schlaf, mein Leben, mein Kadeschöner, schlaf sehr sonnenjung. Bis es kommt das gute Kapitel, schlaf sehr sonnenjung. Schlaf in dieser Tag, mit Schlaf se Schlafljuju. Schlaf in dieser Tag mit Schlaf se Schlafljuju.
Thanks very much, Phyllis. That was great. So I mentioned Sholem Aleichem's last public appearance before his death here in 1916. And oops, let's go down a few here. Oh, we're going backwards. That's the problem. The technology, we get along great. So his last appearance here was at the Metropolitan Opera on North Broad Street. And as it was reported in her book, Marie Waif Goldberg, his daughter, her book by my father, Sholem Aleichem, it was we realized what a sad and really almost shameful for Philadelphia episode. To quote from her book, "Two men from Philadelphia, representing themselves as acting for the community, arranged for my father to come to their city for a reading at a small hall for the moderate sum of $250. When he arrived, he learned that the small hall had been changed for one of the largest houses in the city, the Metropolitan Theater, with a seating capacity of over 4,000, and that every seat in the house was sold. But he received the same small amount, a check for $250. The check was put through the bank and was returned, marked payment stopped. It was then that my father learned that those two men represented no organization at all, but were simply entrepreneurs with shady reputation in business. When my father's admirers in Philadelphia learned of this, they tracked down the two men and ordered them to make good on the check, or they would be run out of town, which they did finally, pay him. So I discovered, however, that this was not. Oh, and this is how the exponent reported. Belatedly, they reported on his appearance here, but they waited until the day, somewhat after Sholem Aleichem had died. So they had and did a strange job translating one of his stories there. I'm not sure where that came from, but it was anyway. And this is what, I mean, if you hadn't seen the Met, we've probably driven by it on North Broad Street. That's what it looked like at the time. And that's how it was, his appearance was announced in the Philadelphia Public Ledger at the time, which led to, I was going to say here. Oh yeah, so I discovered that the Met was not his only appearance. His first time was in 2006 or 1906, where he hoped to see his work staged in New York and elsewhere, and do very well financially, and his perennial financial insecurity. He was greeted at the New York Pier by thousands of admirers and fans, invited to all kinds of events, and was written up massively in both Yiddish and English newspapers, who dubbed him, for the benefit of American readers, as the Yiddish Mark Twain. This was a response to that in one of the Yiddish papers, asking which one, Sholem Aleichem or Mark Twain, was good enough to shine the other one's shoes. You see, Mark Twain should shine his shoes, or he should shine Mark Twain's shoes, or he should shine his own shoes. According to one advertisements in one story in the Yiddish Jewish Morning Journal, which circulated both in New York and Philadelphia, Sholem Aleichem appeared here on December 31st, 1906. This was an ad in the Jewish Morning Journal. A Gast in Philadelphia on the top line, and that's what it says. A big Sholem Aleichem this evening, and this was at the Hebrew Literature Society, which is a building on Catherine Street that is still there. In fact, it's around the corner from where I live. And this was followed by a reading combined with a performance of a play at Tomaszewski's New Columbia Theater at 3rd and Green in the Northern Liberties. Unfortunately, I haven't yet found a press account reporting on the event. So the fact that we're assuming that it actually happened, but that's the Yiddish Hebrew Literature Society's building. But we do have some other records of his visit in 1906, and these are letters to my grandfather, who I mentioned earlier, and that's him standing in front of his candy store in South Bronx, in somewhere around 1906. And this is a letter from Sholem Aleichem to my grandfather, in which he's trying to help get him to help translate one of his stories, which is called The First Jewish Republic. And the interesting part to me, though, is at the very bottom when he talks about how they're about to go back to Europe, to Geneva. In fact, when he writes him, he says that he wrote that we sent this from Geneva. He'd already gone back, but he mentions that his little son Numa had really liked your ice creamlich. In the last line, it's at the very bottom. So there you are. Anyway, that's really all we have. So I want to thank our readers and our singer, and recommend two good books if you have any additional interest in Sholem Aleichem, which you should. One is a wonderful kind of stylistic biography by Jeremy Dauber. And the other is a terrific book tracing how the Tevye stories turned into The Fiddler, and how they have developed this life around the world. To this day, they are reported something. The Fiddler is performed something like 200 times every year in America, all over the place. In fact, I gather it was performed in West Philly in Yiddish not so long ago by some of the younger Yiddishists supposedly rising among us. And hopefully we'll get them to do it here sometime next fall or shortly after. So thank you very much for coming.